Hey everyone, welcome back to Borders and Beyond. I'm Paolo Greybeard, and today we're taking off the gloves. We're diving into a brutal truth that's been dressed up in intellectual jargon and sold to the world like it's gospel. You've probably heard it. The Meiteis are under attack. The Kukis are narco-terrorists that they started the violence. But what if that's all performative? What if the real aggressors are playing victim while entire communities are being erased? Joining me is someone who's gone deep into Telegram channels, into burned out villages, into the psychological warfare being waged from Imphal. She's an undercover investigative journalist who has risked a lot to bring truth to the surface. Malaika, an undercover investigative journalist with first-hand insights into the propaganda, the lies, and the cold brutality of this conflict. Malaika, welcome.
Thank you, Paolo. I appreciate this space because truth is becoming rare in this crisis. And while powerful interests manufacture narratives, communities are being wiped out. The Kuki-Zo are not just under threat, they are being systematically erased.
Let's begin with the main strategy of the Meitei elite and their think tanks. Projection. They portray themselves as victims while enabling violence. The first claim we need to address is this. They claim as if they want separate administration, they should demand it from the central government. Why do they demand it by killing Meiteis?
Oh, it's everywhere. But it's also a complete distortion. The first person killed in this conflict? A Kuki-Zo pastor Sehkhohao Kipgen, bludgeoned to death in Torbung. That's not speculation, that's documented. Right after that, a bunch of abandoned Meitei huts were mysteriously set on fire, with no one inside. Convenient, right? It set the stage for the cookies attacked us. Frenzy. But the truth is, it looks like those fires were staged by radical groups like Arambai Tenggol to manufacture a justification for violence that had already been planned. Why? To justify retaliatory violence before any actual conflict escalated.
Wait, so the cookies didn't even strike first?
Not even close. What happened next was an onslaught of fake news, rumors that Kuki militants had raped and killed Meitei women in Churachandpur. These stories hit social media like a virus. But guess what? No evidence. Zero. It was designed to enrage, not inform. These were deliberate incitements crafted on WhatsApp, Telegram, and local Facebook networks by Meitei operatives with political motives. In fact, by the time Kuki-Zo defenders mobilized, buffer zones had already been breached and dozens of tribal villages had been torched. There was no demand for separate administration through violence. There was violence and then a desperate demand for protection.
So the narrative that paints Kukis as initiators collapses when examined chronologically.
Exactly. There, why did they attack us? Story only works if you erase the evidence of months of prior incitement, coordinated provocation, and state backed militia mobilization.
Another major talking point. They claim the Kuki-Zo started the war. It was pre-planned. Your investigation uncovered disturbing evidence to the contrary, right?
Yes, Paolo. Starting as early as late 2022, I found documentation, photos, testimonies of Meitei radicals marking Kuki-Zo homes with symbols in Imphal Valley. These marks weren't random, they were targeting mechanisms. Think about it. Why would anyone mark specific homes if not for future violence? Then, in early 2023, the Kuki-Zo community protested against illegal eviction notices served to tribal villages. The Meitei CSOs quickly spun this into an anti Meitei narrative, falsely portraying peaceful resistance as militant uprising. Worse, in the Thangting Hills, what was branded a tree plantation event turned out to be a show of force. Youths affiliated with BJYM and Arambai Tenggol arrived with arms. No saplings, no environmentalism, just a message. We control this territory now.
A show of power disguised as environmental activism?
Precisely. It wasn't a conflict that spiraled out of nowhere. It was a strategic ethnic cleansing agenda that needed a false pretext.
So this pre-planned war accusation is actually a projection of what Meitei forces themselves were orchestrating?
Exactly. The evidence, when aligned, shows Meitei groups were laying the groundwork for an ethnic purge and needed the world to believe the opposite.
They claim, we only declared war on narco-terrorists. Let's talk about this term, narco-terrorists, thrown around so freely.
It's a tool, Paolo. Dehumanize, then destroy. When Meitei CSOs declared war against the Kuki-Zo, they used vague phrases like Chin-Kuki, narco-terrorists, to blanket label an entire population. But who were the victims? Take David Thieck, a young man who was dragged out, tortured, and publicly mutilated. They played with his corpse. Is this how you treat a drug kingpin? The truth is, no court of law had charged these people with drug crimes. The term narco terrorist is being used as a license to kill and shield the actual orchestrators of violence from scrutiny.
And the irony is there are actual Meitei drug networks operating freely in Imphal, right?
Yes, and they're untouched. Because this war isn't about drugs, it's about land control and ethnic supremacy.
They claim highway blockades are illegal. Let's apply this standard universally, but didn't the valley do the same?
Worse, the valley shut off essential supplies to hill districts, baby food, medicines, oxygen cylinders. And not for hours, for months. People died. Yet you hear no outrage about that in Meitei intellectual circles. It's selective legality. When Kukis attempt to raise a defense blockade in their own territory, it's illegal. But strangling an entire ethnic population from basic needs? Apparently that's justifiable. It's not about the act, it's about who's doing it.
They claim we are surrendering looted weapons. The Maitais are peace-loving, Kukis are not. They are sloganeering. What is your thought?
Let's break this down with hard numbers. Over 6,000 sophisticated weapons were looted from state armories by Meitei mobs in May 2023 alone. These include AKs, incest rifles, grenades, not just hunting gear. What did they return? A few rusted shotguns and broken arms. And yet, Arambai Tenggol paraded this surrender as proof of law-abiding Meiteis. Meanwhile, videos surfaced of armed patrols in the valley, many in Arambai gear, wielding automatic rifles. Where are those weapons now? Why is there no central audit? Why is there no media coverage?
Yes, there are so many big questions for the government of India to answer. Okay, let's move on. They claim, abrogate the SOO agreement. The suspension of operations agreement was meant to stabilize. Why do Meitei groups want it gone?
Because peace stands in the way of total dominance. These groups, Arambai Tenggol, Meitei Lipun, want to militarily subjugate the hills. They don't want negotiations, they want surrender. When they say abrogate the SOO, what they mean is let the military crush them while we loot, burn, and settle their land. They openly call for surgical strikes, not against terrorists, but against an entire ethnic population. Meanwhile, they arm teenage boys with sophisticated weapons and send them to frontline villages.
Let's now shift from exposure to proposal. The Kuki-Zo demand for Union Territory status. Many outsiders don't grasp its urgency. Can you explain?
Gladly. This demand isn't a political ploy, it's a shield of survival. The Kuki-Zo cannot exist under a regime that either cannot or will not protect them. Let's break it down. 1. Safety and security. Under current administration, police have either stood by or enabled massacres. Central government control can bring federal security forces with no ethnic allegiance, restoring a sense of safety. 2. Political representation. Kuki-Zo leaders are constantly overruled or ignored in the state assembly. UT status means direct representation to New Delhi and a local administrative mechanism accountable to the people. 3. Peace and reconciliation. The current administrative setup makes peace impossible. UT status allows for de escalation, truth commissions, and long term healing. Fourth, development and protection of land. Kuki-Zo lands have been declared illegal settlements despite tribal rights. UT status offers constitutional protection of tribal land and direct development funds, which are currently siphoned away.
Nobody could explain better than like you did. Let's name the bigger agenda. What really is behind the curtain?
The Meitei establishment's propaganda serves a few key goals: land grab, under the War on Drugs slogan, seized tribal land and reclassified forests to push cookies out; ethnic engineering, demographic control through forced displacement and silencing of minority voices; power consolidation, a single ethnic group dominating state politics, bureaucracy, and resource channels. They accuse cookies of drug crimes but refuse to investigate known Meitei drug lords operating from Imphal. They attack churches and tribal homes but speak of civilizational values. They want the world to see them as the endangered ones, but they're the ones holding the sword.
Let's end this with clarity. If Delhi's listening, what do they need to do?
The government of India must act with clarity and courage, grant Union Territory status to Kuki-Zo areas, disarm Arambai Tenggol and arrest their leaders, expose and prosecute Meitei drug lords and militia funders, stop enabling genocide under the guise of state integrity. Anything less is complicity.
Malaika, thank you. This has been raw, uncomfortable, but real.
Thank you, Paolo.
To our listeners, this isn't just a story of politics. This is a story of people, of families, of a community being hunted in broad daylight, while the world debates vocabulary. The Kuki-Zo people are not separatists. They are survivors. They don't seek war. They seek breath. The Meitei establishment's victim card is soaked in the blood of innocence. Let us call things by their true names. Let the world listen, and let justice begin. This is Borders and Beyond. I'm Paolo Greybeard. Stay awake, stay alert, stay on the side of truth.